What's the most ducked up thing you've seen someone do at work and still not get fired? I worked with a guy who literally had no job. He was the studio supervisor, but there was no activity in the studio to supervise because the studio had effectively become non-operational. He coasted for a full 8 years at this job. He would come in the morning, open his email, get coffee, gossip and complain about the industry for an hour, leave for an hour, come back for lunch, leave for another 3 hours, come back, send a few emails, and then officially leave for the day. It was infuriating and majestic. Store manager got caught adding hours he didn't work to his time card. He got a reprimand and they removed the ability for managers to edit their own hours. About a month later he gets caught using another manager's login to add more hours he didn't work. Another slap on the wrist and is still working at the same place. We had a manager like that too. We had punch cards, but she was the front-end manager and was able to override the system and put in whatever she wanted. She was a huge though, so people watched and recorded her and got back at her by getting her fired. My dad always told me take pictures and write down your hours, whether it's a punch card, electronic, or written. I've always done it, and one time I worked at a DQ and she scheduled me a double, then had the balls to say I forged it. Nap it. So I showed her my evidence with pictures and my own notes, which you can definitely forge, but pictures are a little more solid. She apologized and gave me my hours +2 for questioning me. Used his corporate credit card for over $10k in personal purchases. He was reprimanded, but not fired, or made to pay the company back. Within the next year he did the exact same thing and only then was he fired. I wouldn't say ducked up, but I work closely with the federal government, and the number of people just hanging around until retirement, doing jobs that have been obsolete for 20 years, is remarkable. There's a dude I know whose only job is to scan things, like scan paper into PDFs. He's a federal employee being paid $50,000/year. I worked at a school for kids who need emotional support. We had a class roommate who would scream at kids until they cried and then actively mock them for crying. These kids were 7 and came from horrifically abusive houses. It sucked to work in a place that allowed abusive behavior to continue. She was close family friends with the principal. It's very hard to help a child when they learn from a young age that adults aren't able to make things better and adults are capable of incredibly mean things. Edit. For clarification, this was reported. She still got a letter of rec out of her BFF the principal, but she no longer works with children. Edit 2. Please remember that adults who show maladaptive behavior might have been these children. It's never too late to be kind to someone. Adults may be less cute than children, but they still deserve a world that is kind to them and gives them hope. Energizer circuit someone was still working on. Had 3 guys from the power company do that to us years ago. We were inside still making up taps in a gutter when they re-energized the service without asking if we were done. Knocked my buddy off his feet, but did no serious damage. We went outside and raised hell. They got real sheepish and left for a while. Forge a document. It was so obvious. Then lie about not forging it. Then admit to forging it once lie was just slightly questioned. One partner at the firm wanted her fired, but another one didn't. The forger stayed. He liked throwing ice cubes into the deep fryer. He'd stand far enough away that he wouldn't get splashed, which made it a complete surprise to the person working the fryer. If you've never done this, it kind of causes a mini explosion of bubbles and molten grease, which splashes everywhere and, at the very least, makes a mess. When this got too boring, he started stealing kids' meal toys and chucking them into the fryer. It took longer for them to start melting, and if he couldn't get them out, we had to turn the thing off for the rest of the day because it takes hours for it to cool off long enough to retrieve something, and then at least another hour to heat back up. I can't remember what it was that he threw, but it caught on fire and he ended up pulling it out with a pair of metal tongs and threw it in the sink. Then he turned on the water and made, to his surprise, a bigger fire. Did he get burned? Yes. Did he get fired? No. Did he do it again? Sort of. I think he went back to ice cubes after that. TLDR. Technically he got fired, but it was with actual fire. The boss just kind of shook her head and let him keep working there. A guy I worked with ran a food truck into an airplane. When they drug tested him, he peed super dirty. After being told that he'd be getting random drug tests for a while, they showed up at his house within a week. Told them he couldn't because he just smoked yesterday. He was still employed when I transferred from that airport. Bonus story, one day that same guy hid his pants at work and sat in the break room until the smell became pretty loud. Someone told him he should go home. His response was, "No, dog. The damage is already done." Edit. Whoa. Thanks for the shiny gold. Who knew working with a bunch of degenerates would pay off? Accidentally send out the entire company's 3,000 plus employees headcount to the company distro. File contained everyone's salary, birthday, government numbers, etc. Our CFO once emailed me the entire company's W2s. My name and the CEO's name start with the same 2 letters, but mine is first alphabetically, so he got screwed by autocomplete. I checked out everybody's salary and then deleted it, like he asked me to. All of my team were making the same amount. I guess that's fair. CFO was making $400k, though, which seems high. But what do I know about executive salaries? Shrug. I worked a hitty retail job near the university for a bit. The store manager was asking a young employee out on dates, and she turned him down. So in retaliation he secretly docked hours off of her paycheck for a few months before she noticed. When she told the store owner, they backpaid her, and the store manager kept his job. For anyone in Austin, it's the local chain that sells shoes and college kid clothes on the drag. Saw a guy whip out his dick and start running around trying to piss on this one guy. He got a splash on him too. Active duty military here, for anyone curious. I seem to get the feeling that a fair portion of the military is about as gay as you can get without being actively homosexual. This thread is just reinforcing that. I worked at a really nice restaurant and our head chef at the time would come and so spun out on meth he would admit to people he was seeing shadow people and would often have to help us on the line, only to be a total mess. Also at the same place one of his other friends who he smoked with was noticeably tweaked and cut half his finger off on the slicer. Edit. This only like my 10th post or something. Thanks for all the upvotes y'all. Please excuse my lame mobile formatting. I worked at a pizza restaurant when I was 16. Place was absolute anarchy. Impossible to get fired. I'd smoke weed with my bosses. They joke with me try not to get too high today, all while on the clock. Supervisor would take an hour or more on his 30-minute breaks and come back blasted as duck. We'd all make ourselves free food whenever we wanted. No one was properly trained, so obviously proper procedures were out the window. No one would claim their tips, so we were being sued by the eyes. Again, no one followed procedure, so the health department was on our ass. Yikes. Destroy an overpass with an excavator improperly loaded on a trailer. Edit. 450 John Deere excavator on a Ron's triple axle low bed with a Jeep and booster. Boom was about 1 foot too high at 60 miles per hour. This is the biggest excavator you can haul around these parts without disassembling it. Guy got caught on video backing up into a BMW at a dealership, got out, looked at it, and just left. Still works here. IDK how? He must have a video of the boss blowing another dude or something. Called a customer stupid for leaving his phone behind and refused to let him back in the theater so he could find it. Phone ended up getting stolen by one of the overpass cleaners and after a few days was brought back and the customer finally got his phone back. At a previous job, we had an employee that was called in to clean on an as-needed basis. The employee, who we will call Fred, owed a lot of child support. After an unusually long break at not working, we called Fred in to clean the workplace. I think he expected to be paid under the table, because when he was given a paycheck, it was damn near zero because of all the back due child support he owed that we were forced to take from his paycheck. He literally started screaming, swearing, calling the boss every name you can think of, punching walls and threatened to shoot up the place. The boss still calls him back to work as needed to clean because he is really good at cleaning. I've seen more than 0 nurses mistreat patients. So I've seen too many. Unfortunately, unless it's flagrant, and there's enough eyewitnesses, and as long as it's on old people or severely mentally ill people who have little to no family support, nobody gives a flying crap. Whilst working at a local hospital, a nursing student snorting a line of whatever, in scrubs, in a hospital bathroom, to post on Snapchat. Or the two housekeepers who engaged in a fist fight on an elevator, only to continue said fight as they arrived at their destination. Ducking subscribe to Reddit throne. Ducking subscribe to Reddit throne.